I'm gonna need those bonbons stat. I repeat, bonbons stat. Over. Ooh. Gonna have to ask you to move along. Young Colton is deep in reflection.
I hope you packed plenty of snacks and perfected your road trip playlist, because we're hitting the highways of Petria again. This is Road 96, Mile Zero, a prequel to 2021's Road 96, a narrative-heavy choices matter adventure game following an eclectic cast of hitchhiking youths on their quest to freedom or further oppression. In Mile Zero, the player takes control of two characters, Zoe, aka Z, and 𝐥𝐤𝐤𝐞, unlikely best friends from very different backgrounds, united by their love of graffiti and vandalism, I think. I'm honestly not sure what brought these two together in the first place, but your decisions and the consequences of your actions will decide if they remain friends by the end of this adventure. And a lot can happen in Mile Zero's rather short runtime. Will Zoe choose friendship or family? Will 𝐥𝐤𝐤𝐞 become fully radicalized by the Black Brigade? Only you can decide. If you will allow me one nonsensical tangent for a moment here, I need to share that I could not read the words Black Brigade without singing it to the tune of Black Parade in 𝐥𝐢𝐤𝐤's voice in my head, because I am in fact the slimy byproduct of my generation, and I will not apologize for it. You're welcome. Moving on to gameplay. If you played the original Road 96 title, the narrative choices and overall tone of this one won't come as much of a surprise to you. However, Mile Zero definitely shakes things up a bit, with some gameplay variety in the form of musical segments. Not quite a rhythm game, and not quite a joyride, these scenes have you controlling Zoe on her roller skates, or 𝐥𝐤𝐤𝐞 on his skateboard, while collecting items for points and ultimately receiving a letter score at the end of your run. These scenes don't give you complete freedom of control and are very forgiving if you're not a particularly coordinated skater, so don't let these scenes intimidate you too much if you're not much of a fast-paced action sports fan. Running into an obstacle will bring you back to a checkpoint, and if you fail too many times, you are presented with the option to skip that particular segment. I never skipped a single segment because pride, but it was nice to know the option was there. In addition to making life-changing narrative choices and skating around fanciful scenes, Mile Zero takes a lot of other creative gameplay risks that add a good bit of variety and overall interest to the mechanics of its predecessor. You can create your own graffiti within the confines of your hideout, deliver newspapers straight to the face of unsuspecting bystanders, you can play Connect 4, and even give Zoe a tattoo. Honestly, in terms of gameplay at least, never at any point during my run did I have any clue what the game was going to throw at me next, and I really came to lean into that and expect the unexpected. It was goofy at times, sure, and maybe even a little cringy, but I liked it. There was also plenty of collectibles to discover, including pixelated character stickers and new colors of spray paint. As far as the story goes, on the other hand, again, no real surprises if you did play the original Road 96 title. This prequel serves to explain why Zoe is on the road in the first place, and sets the scenes for some of the other characters you'll encounter as well. The tone and writing style is still very much the same, so if you loved the made-up land of Petria and the unrest between these fictional parties and corrupt politicians, there's certainly more where that came from. While, and I can't emphasize this enough, this place, these people, and their political parties are fiction, they do tend to feel a little on the nose, which is not everyone's cup of tea. For me, the storytelling is just okay. It doesn't awaken any sort of severe adverse reaction within me. I just wish the characters in this world didn't feel so one-dimensional. It seems like the political climate is just about the only aspect of Petria we get to learn about. I get it, there's a lot going on in that realm, but since it is the sole source of conflict in this world, more of the same just ends up falling a little flat for me. I want to know more about these people, their culture, their customs, their holidays. I want to know what happens to people after they cross the border. Is it everything it's cracked up to be? They clearly have video games. Tell me more about that. Something. The relationship between the two protagonists and the gameplay variety are still enough to keep me invested, and I could even be persuaded to go back in and try for another ending, but I think the world and the relationships would feel a lot more dynamic if they just had a little bit more depth. One point back to the writers, though, for having a sense of humor, because the Colton story arc is very entertaining. 𝐦𝐤𝐤𝐬 is visually very similar to the original Road 96 title as well. Digic's art had a style and they stuck with it, so I've got to respect them for the commitment. The graphics were never astounding and they're kind of not my favorite, but you have to admit there is a certain charm to them and the character models are instantly recognizable. There is a distinct shading style and color scheme used that isn't necessarily realistic, but does make you feel like you're watching a computer animated movie. I think the cinematics really shine the best in the musical segments of the game, where the visuals can really run wild and put the characters in all sorts of whimsical environments and scenarios. But of course, the whole reason I agreed to pack my bags and get back on the road for this prequel is the soundtrack. We can't talk about this title without addressing the fact that our retro synth saviors, The Midnight, contributed an original track to this title, and it slaps. I love The Midnight. I've seen them live 3 times now, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat. That's a Midnight song, and I will stop. So hearing them in the context of a game is always an awesome experience, and their smooth retro vibes jive really well with the rest of the tracks, except maybe the Offspring one, but as a Crazy Taxi fan, I am legally obligated to let that one slide. In seriousness, I think the soundtrack is fantastic and was a clear highlight of my experience with 𝐬𝐤𝐤𝐿. The voice acting is a bit hit or miss, but for the most part is pretty helpful in providing some much needed humanity to some of these characters, even if Adam the bodyguard's voice will haunt my nightmares for the foreseeable future. All in all, I think the developers learned some valuable lessons from the original Road 96 title and used that knowledge to improve upon the blueprint for 𝐬𝐤𝐤𝐿. The gameplay variety, particularly the addition of the musical segments, helped kick things into a higher gear, even if the story is a little bit stuck in the breakdown lane. I have to admit, I looked forward to the musical challenges more than finding out what was actually going to happen to the characters. There's still plenty of room for improvement, but for a short experience with multiple potential outcomes, you could do a lot worse with your time. Personally, I want to see what else comes out of this universe, as it still feels like there's a grander tale to be told.